Namaste. Tonight we're going to play with the mountain posture, forward fold, the halfway lift, and the lunges. We want to work on lengthening the back of the hamstrings and the forward hip flexor. Anatomically, there are 3 hamstrings on each leg that wrap into the gluteal muscles. There's 3 of them as well that hold the pelvis. So this is the pelvic girdle here. This is the iliac crest. There's also the SI joint, which are the 2 little joints here that put the bone and the spine together close to the tailbone, which is the sacral area. And then there is the lumbar, which are the larger spinal vertebrae under the thoracic area, which is where the ribs are. So L1 to L5, and then it goes to S1 to S5 in the tailbone. The coccyx is at the very end of the tailbone. The L5 and S1 is also where the sciatic nerve originates. It comes from that area of the spine. So when we're working with the pelvis in our forward folds, as well in the lunge, we want to kind of be careful with what the SI joint is doing, how the sacral iliac joint is doing, as well as how are we supporting safety for our sciatic nerve, which is the longest nerve that goes all the way down to the foot. We want to create the length in the hamstrings and how they are attached to the sit bones and the pelvis. For reference to the sit bones, that's the area of the thigh bone that connects with the junction of the hip into the hip bone and the pelvis. What we want to do is understand that ligaments hold bones. Tendons are from muscle to the bone. Okay, so for example, the bicep here's the muscle. It has a tendon to go to this bone, but the ligaments are from the lower arm to the upper arm. So ligaments and tendons don't have much flexibility. Their job is to keep things together, where muscle is more elastic type, where it has constriction, relaxation, squeezing, pulling, contracting. So its job is to help the tendons move the bones. So when I pull up my arm, my ligament is pulling the arm in connection with the tendon and the muscle. So the muscle is squeezing, and then it has the reaction, and they're all familial with each other. So when we go into a forward fold, we want to lengthen and work the muscle and not necessarily the tendons and the ligaments. So when you go into a forward fold and you're feeling it right behind your knee, we have a set of tendons that crisscross through the back of the knee. We have ligaments and tendons on the side of the knee, and then the one in the front of the knee. So the one on the front of the knee stops it from going too far. The ones on the side stop it from going side to side, and the one in behind stops it from either going forward or backwards too much. And I'll reference that as well as to the sit bones and the relationship to the SI joints, the lumbar and sacral area, and how the hamstrings are connected here. So through movement of asanas, we will do that. So I'll give instructions for each posture, and then just for fun, we'll add some music and just do a little bit of a flow for about 7 minutes. Okay, so let's get started. The mountain posture, I'll start right here, starts with the feet. We have 4 points on the soles of the feet. We have points 1 and 2 on the front where the balls are, and then we have points 3 and 4 in the back. The instep heel of the is 3, the outstep of the heel is 4, and then in the middle here in this area is point 5. That is a lift that goes right up through the shoulders. So when we're standing in mountain and our thumbs rotate open, this puts the shoulders up and back behind the heart and on top of the cresting of the, what I call the iliac crest here, so the hip bones. And there's a short scoop to the tailbone. Tailbone goes under, the pubic bone goes forward and up. It has an upward tilt towards the heart. And then the knees get buoyant. There's a small degree of a bend. And so when you engage up the foot, so the sole of the foot is flattening out, heels are going back, toes are going forward, but there's a lift in the middle. The knees get a little bit buoyant. Their toes and knees point towards each other. There's not a lot of bend in the knee. It's just soft. When that happens, the pubic bone tucks forward. The shoulders go behind the heart. The chin and the throat are soft. The natural C curve here in the back, but the top of the crown of the head is extended up. Then we go to a forward fold at the hip, keeping the back straight and just moving from the hip. So see how the sit bones elongate the hamstrings. You should feel it here in the middle where the bulk of the hamstrings are. Incorrectly would be to slouch and curl this way. This puts a lot of stress right back here in the lower area of the back and the SI joint. The SI joint is very thin and small. It's not supposed to move too much, but if this was your hip socket here, and this is your femur bone, your thigh bone, and it goes into the hips. And so up here would be the SI joints, and it helps the hips kind of do this thing. Not supposed to move too much because we don't want our hips to do this, but it creates a stability with a mild flexibility. When you come into a forward fold, you want to keep that area strong. So the sit bones, the bones that you are actually sitting in when you sit in a chair, they get flexible, pushed back, and scooped up while you keep the heart coming forward. So it's not necessarily that you can reach or touch the floor. It's more about how to keep the back straight as you come forward and lengthen the legs. My legs will not go all the way long without compensating a roundness in my back. So the big idea is that I want to keep my back safe and elongate through the sit of the bone. Elongate the muscles here. Then in coming into a halfway lift, it's like sitting in a chair. It's not necessarily the chair pose, but you might be able to reach and put the arms in this position. Some of you might be able to actually step on the hands, which would go in this position, drawing the shoulders back. There is more bend in the knee and the chest goes to the thighs. That's a nice way. I think it might be gorilla, the gorilla posture. It's another modification for the halfway lift, and it brings the shoulders away from the neck and stretches to trapezius area here. As for lunges, we want to be mindful of this floating knee bone called the patella. And what engages the patella is the shin muscle, which starts with the toes being lifted and the ankle that it's flexed. So when I have flexion in my ankle, this stops the floating bone from moving around. So for example, we come to a forward fold, halfway lift, and then we step back into a lunge. So a traditional sun salutation lunge. This could be the runner's lunge here. Crescent lunge is when we put the knee down. So you'll see that my ankle is flexed. This stops my kneecap from rolling around on the ground. If I'm okay with it and I'm gentle with it, because I don't want to tear my meniscus that's under the floating bone, if I let go of the flexion in my foot and point my toes, this releases the kneecap and it can move around. So I need to just feel safe and comfortable in my crescent lunge. My big joints are stacked and my toes are in line with the knee. So runner's lunge can also be up like this. Now if you come into a lunge where your body is up, you're taking the crease out of this area. So I'm just going to turn around. You can come into a lunge any way that you want. You can get down on the knees first. You can also use a chair, which is a nice support. So my body is creasing here in the front, and I want to create the lift. So I'm going to find some balance. I'm going to pretend that I have railroad tracks right here. So I have some space in between the legs. I'm having a nice hip flex stretch in the back of the leg. This feels good. I'm releasing the ankle towards the ground, and the knee in the front is stopping on top of the ankle here. If you're pretty tight in your hips, you might feel a twist. We want to just keep the shoulders a little bit more directed. Don't worry too much about what's happening in the pelvis here, except for this crease. If you're too forward, you're bringing the crease a little bit tighter here. So we want to take that, and this compromises the lower back. So we want to get the scoop like we did in our mountain pose. We want to create the scoop, get clear and open. This really opens up the hip flexor up into the belly, which is the lower abdominal girdle here, which is wrapped around to the buttocks. The forward leg, the quad muscle, is doing an external rotation. So we want to be mindful of the outstep of the heel, which is 0.3, and 0.2, which is the pinky ball. So a lot of action moving down and forward, but away from the body without actually moving away from the body. I'm just going to trade sides because that was a great stretch. Okay, so you can start a lunge from standing, moving forward, and you can bring the arms up in this upper position. You can bring your arms into a cactus type of position, which is really great for opening the pectorals. If you've been doing some push-ups, this is a great way to open that up. Railroad tracks, feeling comfortable. So what if I want to come down and do a crescent lunge? Again, I can start down on my knees. Find comfort and safety in the back of my leg and my knee. Finding direction and alignment. Getting the crease out of the front that really engages the forward scoop and the hip flexor to stretch. Feeling balanced. You can put your arms here. Thumbs come away from the body. Thumbs direct the shoulders and what the shoulder blades do. You can come into a cactus arms, or you can bring the hands together. Or you can go into more of a prayer position or a serving, what I call a serving tray position. So these postures are very yang, forward energy, masculine, and to create a little bit of diversity, if you want to go yin and you enjoy the lunge posture, there's a safe way to be more open. With the runner's lunge, getting the creases out, we're lengthening the hip flexor. The quad muscle is moving away from the bone, but we might want to stretch the inner groin. We can do that with a lunge as well. So starting on both knees, get yourself a nice big step forward if you can. If you have a chair or some blocks to help you move. So you can see that I'm a bit wider. What I'm going to do is take my foot here so I'm in line. So my hip's in line with my shoulder here. I'm outside my line, okay? I take my foot and I turn it out to the side, and that's how I gauge how wide I want to be. And I can slide it, walk it a little bit forward. Protecting the back knee. Is your back ankle flexed or not? Do you need padding? You have some stability here if you can't reach the floor. Now the big toe is going to curl up. Back up a little bit so you can see. It's going to curl up, and this knee is going to follow the flexion in the ankle. So the toes are up and you're rolling onto points 2 and 3 onto the outside of the foot. But the flexion in the ankle is protecting the knee here, which is making the hamstrings not have to move in a different way. Okay, so for example, and I don't want to damage myself, but if I'm just going to fall away without flexion and strength in my toes and ankle, my hamstrings have to overcompensate for that. So if I start with the foot and keep it strong and allow it to go slowly, then it's more forgiving. Now with the back leg, it can stay in this position, or you can allow it to go back. So to go back, we would start with the back leg first, then step up, pull, flexion, dropping away, and I'm okay with my back knee being loose, and I can be here. So this is stretching the inner groin. If you want to come deeper, you can have your hands under the shoulders, pushing down, so we're not collapsing. You're propped, okay? If you have blocks, you can stack your fists to your forehead. If you want to come down even further, flexion in these bones down here is what's going to protect the ligaments inside your knee. You're going to feel your hips are pretty tight. They can be pretty tight because it's pulling from underneath and coming forward. So the lower you go, the more this hip on the side is going to come and kind of twist. That's okay, as long as you're feeling all right in your lower back. So this is really going to start opening up the sacral area. If you want more and you want to continue that twist, you would push, so my left leg is forward, my right arm is down, and I can place my left hand on my left leg and push it open here. So lots of wonderful variations depending on how you're feeling comfortable with those. So we did the mountain posture. Big idea is feeling balanced and rooted, but up through the front of the body. We did the forward fold, buoyancy in the knee, stretching the hamstrings, not pushing on the ligaments behind the knee, creating buoyancy in the knee and lengthening to the sit bones. Then the halfway lift, keeping the back straight. You can go into a chair position from there, or you can go forward, stepping on the hands into a gorilla, bringing the shoulders back. And then there are different lunge variations, the runner's lunge, crescent lunge, and more of a yin style of opening into the crescent lunge, with different hand modifications depending on how the upper body is feeling. So what I would like to do is add a bit of flow. When we do a traditional sun salutation, we start in mountain, forward fold, halfway lift, back into lunge, and then there's some variations. We can go and flow through extended child, downward dog, or we can just switch through the lunges and go back up. I think that's what we'll do since those were the core postures that we did today. So I will play some music, and we will first engage into some seated postures, some breathing, and then we'll get ready to go through flow, and then we'll stop there. Okay, so I'm hoping I have the music already set up. and thank you for joining me. Go ahead and check out all the other videos and send me some requests. Email starsisterherbs@gmail.com.